Hello, hello. Welcome, please come in. We've arrived at our final magic-only run in this, Final Fantasy VIII. Why is this the last game I'll be covering? For that, you must wait for the summary video. For now, we hop into the game. While this, frankly, banging intro plays, I must preface this video. Final Fantasy VIII has probably the most interesting magic system in the entire Final Fantasy series. In no other game is magic so central, so integral to the combat, to character progression, to every aspect of the game, and boy does it do a bad job of it. I need to preface this first to be clear that I like Final Fantasy VIII. It is a fun game to stomp around. It is a good time. However, I am often critical of the games I enjoy, and in this video, I am going to be critical of Final Fantasy VIII. And it's not because I don't like it, it's because it deserves to be critiqued. Okay? Let's get into it proper. Wake up in the infirmary after a fight gone wrong, meet Quistis, get a lecture or two, and then interact with the tutorial to get our first 2 Guardian Forces, or GFs for short, which is very funny. Quetzalcoatl and Shiva. By junctioning these to our 2 characters, we can select abilities and attach stocks of magic to our stats. Different GFs start with different junction abilities and can learn others. This is very important. And I must also explain a slight variation from prior games. In prior games, I could only use the magic command in combat. In this game, I will also be allowing myself to use the draw command to draw magic from enemies. There are other ways to get magic, but this is the most expedient and will make the run shorter. I also need to draw to get access to a wide variety of GFs that can only be drawn from certain bosses. So first, it's time to run around drawing a basic stock of magic from enemies to get through the early areas. I can then junction these spells to my stats, most immediately important is magic, for obvious reasons, so that will get my strongest spell, Thunder, then into the Fire Cavern to face Ifrit, which just means spamming blizzards. Fun fact, the game has a speed-up function, much like the FF7 version, but for reasons unclear to me, it doesn't speed up any in-game timers. So I defeat Ifrit with loads of time left on the clock. I won't realize this for many more hours. Ifrit defeated through the power of spamming spells, and I learn Ice Magic Refinement. I will be learning many of these throughout the game, and they let me refine items in my inventory into specific spells. In this case, I can beat up these sandfish and convert the fins into the powerful, for now, water spell. Back to Bahamut Garden, and it's time to meet Zell and head out on our first mission, which is actually a test to become CD, which is a very stupid name for something. Wait, is it just seed? I've always pronounced the D as a full letter because it's capitalized, but I don't actually know if that's right. On to the shores of war, and Cypher joins the party, but he's not a permanent party member, so he doesn't get any of my junctions. Thanks to Magic Junction, these soldiers are dropping in one hit. Run up the path, and Cypher bails, but Selphie joins the party. Ride an elevator, and it's next boss time, Biggs and Wedge. And I start by taking this opportunity to draw Asunas, so I have some status healing for later. Then just spam basic spells until the Elveret shows up. One thing this game has going for it is MP is not gonna be an issue. Here I can grab Siren, my next GF, and then draw out doubles. Double lets me cast a spell twice with a single action. Pretty useful in a regular playthrough, essential in a magic-only one. The Elveret does hit pretty hard, but my party has a full stock of cures to keep everyone topped off. Once I have a stock of doubles, I just spam magic. My only good offensive spell doesn't deal very much damage, thanks to my not exceptional magic, but combined with all the healing I have, it's absolutely fine. Then run back to the beach, being chased by a tank, then Quistis deals with it. We've passed the test, and now it's waltz time. Wow, after the painted face stiff cutscenes in FF7, it's wild to see how much they improved their cutscene quality in FF8. This game came out only 2 years later, and it is a night and day difference. Then another boss fight against Grinaldo and friends. I draw a full stock of Protects from friends, and a full stock of shells from Grinaldo. Then spam basic spells to end the fights. Briefly chat with Alone, and then I can move on. In addition to the complicated magic system, this game also has a card minigame. But unlike many card games, this card game is incredibly relevant to gameplay, because by playing cards, winning cards, and then modding those cards into items, I can access incredibly great spells way before I should be able to. Which, honestly, I mostly don't. I mean, I plan to do that, but card games are not that interesting. While you can get access to strong spells early, you really don't need that for this game to completely break around you. Cards done for now, it's time to get our next mission and fight another boss, Diabolos, which is a really dangerous boss that uses gravity magic to reduce the party to low HP before attacking and dropping them. However, Diabolos is vulnerable to his own gravity spells, and by stalking Demi and then casting it back, Diabolos will take big damage and then heal the caster for some reason. This fight is a bit tight, but thanks to a lot of cures and my decent magic stack letting me stock a few demis with every draw, I'm able to beat the boss and add the next GF to my party. And beating Diabolos also gives me enough AP that Siren has now learned Life Magic Refine, and Ifrit has learned HP Junction. Now that we're officially CD, we get money at regular intervals as a salary. We can increase the amount of money by passing tests, though we are limited to Squall's level. This replaces random enemies dropping gil, which does make sense. By taking this money and buying very affordable tents, we can convert these into Curagas, the best healing spell in the game. I can then junction these to my stats. It's great for vitality or spirit, but it's also great for HP, because it boosts my HP by 2,200, making my HP 5 times higher than it should be at this level. This game is now fundamentally broken, and will never be unbroken. And yes, I know I actually junctioned regens on this character. I played cards for an hour to get 100 regens, which serve the same purpose, but takes more effort. Considering how this game is about to go, I really should not have bothered. Anyway, time to actually do some plot. Hop on a train to my next destination, and we fall asleep and dream about Squall's dad. Spoiler, I guess. This will happen several times throughout the plot, and none of these sections are actually that interesting. Take a car to Dealing City, which we won't see properly until later, then a nightclub to listen to this lady play the piano. This highlights another funny thing about the speed up in this game. It doesn't speed up the music, which is good, so it sounds nice. However, the trigger to advance this scene in particular is when the music ends, so the boys just sit here, in silence. For so long, it's actually kind of funny. Then Laguna and Julia chat, and we're back to the squad on a train. And we reach Timber, join up with Zone and Watts, and are reintroduced to Renoa from the Waltz, who is our new boss. And it's train heist time, because we need to kidnap the president of Galbadia. Oh, and this is one of the dozen or so times where the game unequips all your junctions without warning you, so hope you noticed, or the boss fight is going to be rough. Run along the top of the trains, which you should never do, and our plot succeeds, except, oh no, the president is an imposter, and it's boss time. In Phase 1, we deal with overly affectionate president, beat him down easy enough, and he switches to zombie mode. So I cast Curaga, and the fight ends. Plan ruined, time to return to Timber. Then discover that Cypher broke out of detention, and is now trying to kill President Dealing, which is a bit of an escalation. Here we are introduced to our main-ish antagonist, Sorceress Adia. We must then escape the city. We manage to stay awake throughout the entire train ride, but then pass out in a forest. Another Laguna sequence, but I will be skipping it because nothing interesting happens at all. I do take some time to stock up fully onto spells from this Elastoid though. Then head over to Galbadia Garden, a contemporary of Balam Garden. Here we get the news that Cypher has been executed, which is obviously not true. Then we get our next mission, assassinating Sorceress Adia. Which means taking another train, this time to Dealing City. Before we can talk to our new boss, we need to head to a nearby tomb to get an ID number. A totally normal quest to be given. Before I go in, I draw 100 floats from the Thrustavis, as having a bunch of floats will be very useful. Then into the tomb, which in theory is difficult to navigate, but I have a fundamental memory of how to move around here to get where I need to go. And a boss, Minotaur, who has Protect, Shell, and Life Magic, so you better believe I'm going to be stocking all of those. Satisfied with that, I run around some more, and it's next boss time. This time Minotaur and his brother, Sacred. I knock out Minotaur by casting a few water spells, then spend some time stocking up on 100 doubles with everyone. That done, I can spam some water spells, and Sacred goes down. This gives me my next GF, Brothers, which has HP Junction, so that's another character with way too much HP to be threatened by anything. And it's back to dealing to actually get my mission. A convoluted plot to shoot the sorceress during a parade. Quistis and Renoa fight, then Everin gets in position, then Quistis feels bad and goes back, and B-Team just got locked in. Renoa tries to do a thing, but it goes bad, and wow, just look at that drip on Adia. Fortunately, this room has a secret sewer entrance, and the sewers lead right under the archway that we will be trapping the sorceress in. But back to Squall, because Renoa is in danger and needs to be rescued, which leads into the Iguian boss fight. I have to be a bit careful here, because this boss can inflict petrification, and since I only have 2 party members, I need to be sure to cure the status ASAP. And draw a carbuncle. Fortunately, the boss doesn't really have anything else going for it. I have some Asunas from earlier, but no harm in really stocking up on them here as well. Then a couple waters ends the fight. Irvine misses his shot, so Squall has to take the fight to Adia, which isn't really what happened. Adia blocked the shot with magic, which also doesn't make sense because that's the back of the parade float. How in the world would Irvine have made that shot? I have some notes on this plan. First up is Squall v Cypher. Squall has more HP than he should and can cast double on himself. Cypher has no spells worth stocking, so I just double cast water for a bit. I should really refine some better offensive spells. Not because I'm in danger, but because I'm bored. Then the real fight against Adia. Renoa and Irvine rejoin the fight, and it's time. Adia has powerful tier 3 magic. If she hits Squall with 10 of those, he'll be in danger. I do cast Shell on the party, mostly to reduce the need to heal, particularly for Renoa, who does not yet have HP Junction. I then draw a bunch of Curas, mostly so I don't need to rely on Curaga to heal, since doing so will reduce the caster's max HP. Yeah, the game really disincentivizes you from using magic in combat, because if the spell is junctioned, you have now made yourself weaker. Renoa does die. Wow, that's surprising. Amazing what happens when a character doesn't have 5 or 6 times the HP they probably should. Once I have all the spells I want, it's time to spam doubled water. Well, that was a boss fight. Squall gets an icicle to the chest, and we are done with Disc 1. Time for another Laguna sequence, and it will be skipped, because nothing interesting happens here. Rejoin the party in prison. Time to do a prison break. Zell decides to lead the breakout, because he punches and doesn't need a weapon. I will admit, on the first attempt, I forgot the anti-magic field the group talks about is purely narrative and has no effect on combat. So, quick reload and actually applying junctions, and Zell can easily solo the enemies to get my weapons back. Party is back, time to redo all my junctions. Again. Then another fight with Biggs and Wedge, and they have haste and regen, so excuse me for a moment while I do some stocking. And now I need to actually escape from the facility. Reunite with Squall, then a fight on a bridge. Not sure why this guard has Meltdown, but okay. Double up as always, then spam Thunder to take down the main guard and both mechs. Not sure if this counts as a boss fight, but it's just as easy. Galbadia is planning missile strikes on Balam Garden, so it's time to stop them. No, don't worry about those missiles. They are directed elsewhere. Party gets split up, and it's time to go to the missile silo first. Good thing this stolen vehicle has 3 perfectly fitting uniforms. Hit some buttons here, then set off all the alarms. Time for a fight, but this is a nothing fight. We've tried and failed to stop the missiles, and the base is going to self-destruct, and it's time to fight a boss real quick. Time isn't on my side. Good thing I have double and took a minute to refine some Thandagas. Goodbye, boss. Time to rejoin the other squad where we've arrived back at Balam Garden to a civil war, I guess? Really could have picked a better time for an internal dispute, kids. Gotta find the headmaster before this place gets blown to pieces. Which just means running around fighting random monsters before being told the headmaster is in his office. And apparently no one has thought to check there throughout all of this. Apparently Garden was built on a shelter, which may have something to stop missiles? Alright, well, they are on the way, so let's take an elevator. Then, what a fun turning a wheel puzzle. I was really struggling with how to turn a wheel. Ooh, for life. Not very many, but having a couple on hand could be useful, and it's next boss time. These oil boils are very weak to fire, in case the name wasn't an incredibly obvious giveaway. Good thing I stocked up on some Vairagas. It only takes 3 on each to win the fight. Then draw some Confuse Magic in case I want to junction it to status defense later. I do not ever do that. And then the big reveal. The shelter syncs up with the garden structure, and yep, our school flies now. So, time to dodge some missiles, and then into the sea. That's right, the boat in this game is actually just an entire school. Which is fine, I guess, but it is very weird. Oh right, we never resolved that big internal conflict that was happening. Let's get that sorted. By heading downstairs and meeting Norg, the giant person who apparently bankrolled this entire operation. Time to fight capitalism with fire. Norg has 2 orbs on either side that will move from blue to red. Once red, he spams offensive magic. But you can attack them to switch them back to blue. But only physical attacks will do that. So instead, I'm going to have to cast down Norg while being constantly bombarded by spells. Good thing my HP pool is so unreasonably high. Double casting spells eventually breaks open the pod, letting me target Norg within. I can then draw my next GF, Leviathan. Norg tries to cast Shell on himself, but I have a full complement of Dispels. Norg also tries to inflict Slow, but I have a full complement of Haste. He then tries Silence, but I have a full complement of Asunas. Seriously, Norg, can you stop trying to do things? And he dispelled double on Renoa. Okay, you know what? Have some Firaga. And then Norg goes down. With all the statuses and the spells that could have been interesting if I didn't have all the HP in the world. Norg defeated, we arrive in Fisherman's Horizon. They agree to fix up the garden, but only after we fight some random Galbadians who are going to burn the place to the ground. Quick boss fight with a familiar-looking tank, and the party is reunited. Now, it should be obvious that I am very overpowered. A part of that is that this game is a mess. A part of that is that the Junctioning provides static bonuses to stats, and I have stronger magic than my level would suggest. And because all enemies in the game scale off your level, I am disproportionately stronger than I should be. Resolving that is next on my to-do list. And that happens here, in the Cetra Ruins. First, solve an eye puzzle to unlock Odin. Odin will not do anything the entire fight, but will kill the party once the timer reaches 0. But that does give me plenty of time to draw a full complement of Stop, Death, and Triple. Death is a pretty good junction. Triple is even better and allows me to triple cast spells. Near the end of this fight is actually when I realize that time is not running at triple speed. Whoops. Once I'm done drawing spells, I just cast some tier 3 magic and end the fight. Now, I didn't actually come here for Odin, rather Odin is in the way of what I want. Tonberries. Not useful by themselves, but eventually, by killing a bunch of them, I will encounter the Tonberry King. And killing the Tonberry King gets me the Tonberry GF, which has the level up command. Yup, I am using another command. But only to increase the levels of random enemies and only for the purposes of leveling up. By leveling myself up, I will also be leveling up the bosses, which should, in theory, bring the game more in balance. Now, bosses do cap their level, but I will try to stick as close to that level as possible for the rest of the game. Currently, the best enemy to fight are T-Rexes, as they are vulnerable to sleep and death. And yeah, this is a bit outside the original challenge, but this should, in theory, make things more difficult. So, I will be allowing the level up command. Leveling up completed for now, it's time to head to Balam. That is being occupied by Galbadia. Then run around trying to find where Raijin is hiding, then beat him up in a very one-sided fight. Now it's time for the actual fight against Fujin and Raijin. Starting by setting up triple, and Zell goes down while I'm not paying attention. Okay, that's a good start. The bosses are definitely hitting harder. I mean, I still have triple casted Kiraga, and now triple casted Quake spells. Cast this for a bit until Raijin goes down, and now my next problem is that Fujin can actually use an attack that reduces a character's HP to 1. So that's not ideal, but it is interesting. I draw Pandemona, my next GF, and then stock up on arrows while being careful to keep my party healed up. Once I have as many arrows as I want, I resume casting Quakes and end the fight. Okay, leveling up definitely made that fight a bit more interesting. Let's see if it sticks. Balam freed, I take Balam Garden to the frozen north to investigate whatever happened with that first batch of missiles. And the answer is, they hit. Selphie's sad because her home got blown up, but obviously the party realizing they were all raised in the same orphanage is more important. I mean, other than Renoa. That completed, I head over to that orphanage, but I can't go in because it's time to have a big fight. Good thing Galbadia Garden could also fly. I will say, despite how ridiculous this is, this set piece of a fight is pretty good. Then Renoa immediately nearly falls to her death. Hope your grip strength is good, because it's gonna be a bit. None of the fights here are actually interesting, so we advance to Squall giving a rousing speech, then get into a fistfight with a flying mech pilot. Riveting. Rescue Renoa, run across a battlefield, and it's time to enter Galbadia Garden proper. First up is a fight against my next GF, Cerberus. Cerberus can cast Berserk, which is not great. I can also draw triples, so I restock a few that I've used since getting them from Odin. Then triple cast Quakes. This is going to be my battle plan for a few fights. Cerberus does ruin it a little bit by triple casting Dispel to remove triple, and then triple casting Silence. Good thing he targets Renoa with Silence twice, otherwise this would have been very bad. But Cerberus takes down Renoa with triple casted Thundagas, and I need to get her back up and to full health. I finally think to Dispel triple and get back on the offensive. Cerberus doesn't have a ton of HP, and the fight then ends, which means it's new GF time. Cerberus has some unique abilities, but nothing too exciting, except probably ability times 3, which lets me equip 3 passive abilities, and I finally have HP plus 80%, so Squall now has a lot of health. Just too much health, in fact. Next up is Cypher, who I think is just getting weaker. He does have some tier 3 magic that I might as well draw to stock up for later, then just multicast Quake to end the fight. And it's Adia time, and start the fight the same way as always by casting triple on my entire party. Then do some Quake triple shenanigans. This drops Cypher down, and it's time to actually fight Adia. Start by drawing my next GF, Alexander, then curing Curse and Silence that Adia insists on inflicting. Any boss that can cause status effects is not ideal, particularly Silence. Adia also has Death Magic, which does what it says on the tin, and I have to be careful of Maelstrom, which deals percentage damage and curses. And Adia can cast Slow, so actually this fight has a lot for me to deal with. Dispel? Wow, she just has every spell I don't want her to have. So I have to fight pretty defensively, especially when Adia likes to cast some really dangerous spells in quick succession. I probably should have junctioned any spells to my status defense junctions. I don't think I did that even once the entire game. Oh well, I cure status effects while trying to triple cast Quake as much as possible. It takes some doing, but Adia goes down. That nabs me Alexander, and that is the final boss of Disc 2 in the original release. And it's actually into the orphanage to get some explanations from the headmaster and Adia. And if you guessed, it involved a quasi-time traveling sorceress from the future trying to travel further into the past to compress time into a singularity, you would be right. I don't know why you would have guessed that, but it turns out that was the right answer. Next up is to take a nap and have another Laguna sequence. This time we needed to do another weird minigame to fight a Ruby Dragon. Then a normal fight against a Ruby Dragon, which is time-consuming because of its high health, but not actually difficult. Then to the White CD ship with Adia's letter. We're trying to find a loan to try to help Renoa, but she's been taken to the xenophobic nation of Esther. Back to Fisherman's Horizon, then Squall bails to take the very long walk to Esther along the train tracks. But the party beat us there somehow? I don't think this actually makes any sense. Anyway, Adia joins the party briefly because she wants to not be a sorceress anymore, and it's boss time. Abaddon has flares to draw, so time to take a long time getting a full stock of those. Abaddon does like to inflict status effects, but I have plenty of Asunas to deal with them. Once I'm full up on flares, I can just spam Curagas to deal big damage to the boss. Then ride a fancy elevator, and it turns out this frozen landscape is a front for a sci-fi future city, which is very cool and very weird. And it's another Laguna sequence time that I will be fully skipping. In Esther, we meet with Odine and then have to head to the Lunar Gate. However, that factors into our next steps. Adia has to bail because she needs to be unsorceressed, and Selfie, Squall, and Renoa get to take a trip into space, because this is another Final Fantasy where the answer is space travel. Then a giant obelisk is flying over Esther, and we have to stop it. And because the timer doesn't increase in speed during speed up, I must actually just sit here and wait. And then into the Lunatic Pandora, then out of the Lunatic Pandora. Then we rejoin our other party, which were shot into space. As we hang out in space, we learn the just wild lore that monsters originate from the moon. Alone is the one who sends us into the Laguna flashbacks, and while I would prefer she stop doing that, Squall wants her to use that power to try and help Renoa. But oh no! Renoa is possessed and we can't do anything about it. Renoa then releases the seals on the tomb of the evil sorcerers that used to rule Esther. The intention is that the tomb will get caught in the big monster migration called the Lunar Cry and be carried down to the earth below to serve the big villain, Ultimicia's plans. This game's whole story is just fully wild. Time to evacuate the space station, then Renoa drifts through space, Squall follows after, and they both end up finding this incredibly convenient spaceship that's just, hanging out here. Less convenient are the maybe aliens on the spaceship. Fortunately, they are vulnerable to death, so these fights are very easy. Then land back on Earth, and Esther just lets us keep the spaceship, which is very convenient. Party is mostly back together. Then the party is fully back together. We're in the endgame now, and it's time to collect some random stuff before proceeding. First up is Jumbo Cactor. This boss is a bit annoying because its 10,000 needles attack can kill any party member in one hit. It does have Tornado though, and is very weak to triple casted waters. Then to the 2 level 100 islands to grab all the drop points, mostly to restock all my triples from the prior bosses, but I do pick up some useful ultimas. Then to the secret island in the corner of the map. Here I can sneak past the blue light to chat with Bahamut. This prompts a few unskippable fights with ruby dragons, which can deal pretty good damage with meteor, but they also have meteor to draw, so put the first one to sleep while I get a full stock of meteors on everyone. I may be overdoing the Bahamut fight by casting Protect and Shell on everyone, but better safe than sorry. Ooh, Bahamut has full life magic. Time for another drawing section. Then triple casting meteor. Get used to that. But now I have Bahamut, which gives forbidden magic refinement, magic plus 60%, and ability times 4. Very shiny. Now, time to get some levels up to head into the endgame. I can now access the level 100 island, so I don't need the level up command at all. And a decent number of these enemies are weak to death, making this a very effective grinding area to max out my level, to max out the boss's levels. Levels acquired, and it's time to head back to the orphanage to chat with Renoa, then get called to speak to the Esther president, aka Laguna. Our new big plan, to take on Ultimecia, is to give her everything she wants. Bit of an odd plan, but okay. Play one final card game to get Squall's card, as I'll need this a bit later. Shoot my way into the Lunatic Pandora, and our final Fujin Raijin fight. Unfortunately for them, I've upgraded from Quake to Meteor since the last time we fought. The fight is very flashy, but not very interesting. Next up is the boss that threw us out last time. I don't remember what its name is, but I'm just gonna spam triple Meteor. It probably has mechanics, but I do not wish to engage with whatever those are. Oh, it has an attack that reduces my entire party's HP to 1. Then it lasers down Squall and Selfie. But then my final meteors kill it. Not even close. And Cypher, who is even weaker than before. He has Aura to draw, which probably isn't useful, but I might as well draw some. And then Gilgamesh interrupts the fight before I can get full stacks, which is probably fine. Aura is only useful for limit breaks, which I can't use. Renoa gets kidnapped and is in danger again, and Adele absorbs Renoa, so I must fight Adele without Renoa dying. Adele will periodically drain HP from Renoa throughout the fight, meaning I must cast Curaga spells on Renoa in addition to my normal healing. I tried a few spells to see what deals the most damage, and ultimately it's Flare, which isn't super surprising, but it is surprising that I didn't try it sooner. Pretty sure I just forgot I'd drawn that from the Ruby Dragons. Adele can try spamming magic, but between Shell and my high HP totals, she doesn't stand a chance. Then give Ultimecia everything she wanted, she initiates time compression, and we must believe in the power of friendship to make our way to her castle. This feeds into a big fight against sorceresses throughout time, all of whom are very vulnerable to Meteor and Tornado. Here our abilities are sealed away, preventing us from using magic, which means this is also the first, and only, place in the game where I must break the rules of the challenge. Because the first boss, to the best of my knowledge, cannot be killed without physical attacks. You can get through the first phase of the fight, slowly, by reflecting back its offensive spells with auto-reflect, but in phase 2 it only casts status effects while summoning help, meaning there is no way to deal damage to it without attacking, which is a real bummer. I was so close to the end of this run. But with the first boss dead, I unlock the magic command, and it's time to start tearing through the endgame boss rush. First up is Tri-Point, open by casting triple on everyone, and then start spamming tornadoes. Except I forgot this boss's mechanics, and it counters with the powerful Spark ability. This kills Squall and leaves Selfie in range of Onrush. I try to bring Squall and Selfie back up, but I forget that Resurrection is a sealed ability I need to re-unlock. Let's give this boss another try, because it turns out it is no joke. Rather than spam Tornado, I actually need to spam the element it is currently weak to, which is either fire or ice and changes every time. Otherwise it will counter with Spark, and it likes to scan and use Onrush to deal huge damage. But someone forgot to pack any ice magic, so you know what? I am just gonna spam Meteor. I'll just make sure to always have a character ready to heal up after its Spark ability, which wins me the fight. I unlock Draw next. Then it's time to take on Tiamat. Now that I have Draw, I can draw Eden from this boss, and by junctioning Firaga to elemental defenses, I can't take damage in this fight. So Meteor Spam it is. That unlocks Resurrection. Next boss. Trauma, who doesn't really have anything interesting for the fight. The boss is weak to Tornado, and this deals with the boss itself and the little drones it summons. This gives me back the ability to save. There are other abilities to unlock, but I do not care about any of them. Back to the world map because we need our spaceship back, which involves grabbing a chocobo and running around the ocean to where the Ragnarok is just hanging out. Back to the level 100 islands to restock on spells I've expended, then grind up levels to get my party to level 65, the max level for the final boss. Then it's time to fully rearrange my GFs to make sure everyone has HP plus 80%, Magic plus, bonus ability slots, and equally important, expend 3 for 1. By modding Squall's card into 3 stars and using these on GFs, they learn this ability. This means that when I triple cast a spell, I only expend 1 copy instead of 3. This is incredibly useful for all the reasons you'd think it would be. And it's time, Ultimisha, and she starts by choosing 3 characters at random to fight. Fortunately, once a character dies, they get absorbed into the time stream and replaced with a different character. Less fortunate, I have to cycle through all of my non-prepared characters. Once I get my party actually out on the field, the fight isn't too bad. Especially because Ultimisha Phase 1 is vulnerable to Demi. Finish her off with a triple meteor and we advance to Phase 2. Griever. Time for some Protect and Shell on the party to further minimize damage. Griever also has a percentage damage spell, which isn't great. Fortunately, I am fully set up and can just spam flares. However, starting this phase we see the final boss's really scary ability. Going forward, the boss can burn away entire stocks of magic. Depending on the spell it destroys, it could drastically reduce my HP, my defenses, or my magic stat. No more messing around. The longer this goes on, the greater the chance that Griever breaks something I actually need. Griever is only a single target, so I spam meteors. Then Ultimisha junctions herself to Griever, doesn't change my strategy, spam meteor. Once Ultimisha starts spawning helixes, I switch to Ultima, which hits all targets so it deals more consistent damage. None of Ultimisha's normal attacks actually deal enough damage to really be concerning. Get the tail cut, and we're into the next phase. Only 1 target, so spam meteor it is. And it's the final phase time, and this is where it gets really interesting. Because final phase Ultimisha does not mess around. Issue 1 is Hell's Judgment, which is just Heartless Angel with a name change. However, unlike prior final bosses, Ultimisha casts it a lot, meaning I have to keep at least 1 character ready to heal at all times. Next, Ultimisha can still burn out magic stock, and because of how much HP she still has, she will have plenty of time to do so, meaning the chance of losing something important is very much heightened and only going up. And she can cast a spell, forcing me to reapply buffs if I want them to stay active. And the next item is that partway through the fight, Ultimisha adds a second target. This means she can now draw, and then cast, Apocalypse. I switch to triple Ultima to hit both targets for consistent damage, and then Ultimisha starts talking. The fight isn't over, but damage no longer matters. I just need to hit her 5 times so she expends all her dialogue. And she does not slow down her constant attacks during that time. But once the final hit goes in, the fight is over, and that is Final Fantasy VIII completed. And that is it. The last of the magic-only runs completed. That was an experience. I knew how wonky FF8's progression could be if you tried to break it, which, to be fair, I usually do, but I don't think I realized how wonky it was when you were just trying to play the game. Normally-ish. The Junction system is really interesting in theory, but I think it just fundamentally does not work to balance the game. The fact that enemies, including bosses, also scale completely with your level is a real balancing mess. But I'm sure I'll have a lot to say about that in the summary video coming out next week. For now, if you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you'd like to see more of this, feel free to subscribe. Hey, maybe leave a comment if you have something you'd like to say. But whatever you decide to do, have a safe trip home.